Alright, in Chapter 6 we're going to look at different types of quadrilaterals. And in 6.1 we will start with the classification of quadrilaterals. So remember, a quadrilateral is a four-sided polygon. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides parallel. And we see in our figure that our arrows show that our two opposite sides are parallel with one another. A rhombus is a parallelogram with four sides equal in length. A rectangle is a parallelogram with four right angles. A square is a parallelogram with four equal sides and four right angles. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with at least one pair of parallel sides. So notice that a trapezoid is not a parallelogram. An isosceles trapezoid is a trapezoid with non-parallel opposite sides congruent. A kite is a quadrilateral with two pairs of adjacent sides equal in length. The ends of the kite are the endpoints the congruent sides share. Here is a diagram of our different quadrilaterals, and this diagram can be found in the Chapter 6 folder as well. So we notice all of our figures we discussed are quadrilaterals. They all have four sides, and then we branch off from quadrilaterals. So we have a kite on the left, parallelogram in the middle, and trapezoid on the right. Now an isosceles trapezoid is also a trapezoid, and it's also quadrilateral. And for parallelograms, when we get down to a square, we can say a square is also a rectangle, it's also a rhombus, it's also a parallelogram, and it's also quadrilateral. But be careful, so all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Okay, now we're going to look at some examples of classifying figures by their markings. And it's important to note the markings on the figure and not to assume that it's a certain type of polygon just by the way it looks. So in number 1, we have consecutive sides congruent. So number 1 is a kite. In number 2, we have four right angles. But we do not know anything about the sides, so it is a rectangle. It could also be a square, but we don't know that because we do not know anything about the sides. Number 3, we have one pair of opposite sides parallel, so that makes it a trapezoid. Now number 4 I know is marked different on your paper. These aren't here. So you have one pair of parallel sides and opposite sides are congruent. So that makes that an isosceles trapezoid. And in our last examples, we are going to find the value of x. In number 5, we have a rectangle, so we know that we have four right angles. And the 12x minus 6 is one of our angles. Now, right angles are always 90 degrees, so I can say that 12x minus 6 equals 90. And then if we solve for x, I'm going to add 6, and then divide by 12, I get x equals 8. In number 6, we're told we have a kite and our ends are Q and R. Now in a kite, consecutive sides are congruent. So to find x, I am going to set my two expressions equal to each other. So 8x minus 11 equals 5x plus 1. Now solving for x, so if I subtract 5x, I have 3x minus 11 equals 1. Add 11, 3x equals 12. And then finally divide by 3, we get x equals 4. Number 7, isosceles trapezoid. So we have one pair of parallel sides, or opposite parallel sides, and then our other opposite sides are congruent. So 13x plus 9 equals 24x minus 2. Okay, I'm going to subtract 13x from the 24 and get 11x minus 2. Then if I add 2, I have 11 equals 11x. So that means that x is 1. Alright, and for our last example, we have a square. So remember, in a square, all our sides are congruent. So again, we can say that 6x plus 2 equals 9x minus 13. I will subtract 6x from the 9x. 3x minus 13. Then adding 13, I have 15 equals 3x. And finally dividing by 3, we get that x is 5. Just make that equal sign. Okay, and that concludes our examples in section 6.1, classifying quadrilaterals.